The winter of our discontent. William Shakespeare wrote that line for King Richard III in 1597, and not the 2025 New Jersey college basketball season, which has devolved into a train wreck of losses, injuries, and disappointment. Yet, the show must go on. The show meaning Jersey Jump Shot, the first and only podcast dedicated exclusively to college hoops in the Garden State. We always begin February with Jersey's premier bracketologist, and that means Brad Wachtel is back with us, the East Brunswick native and former Rutgers basketball staffer who started talking brackets with us many years ago, is now famous. His Facts and Bracks website is one of the most visited and widely respected in all of bracketology, and he's now the bracketologist for Seth Davis's nascent Hoops HQ venture, and you can also see him on the national podcast Field of 68. So we always are happy to have Brad back with us at his roots. And what in the world are we going to talk about? Well, we do have a few things, including what Brad is up to now. Mr. Wachtel, welcome back to Jersey Jump Shot.
Thanks for having me, guys. Jerry and Steve, really appreciate it. I don't forget where I came from. Trust me. I know you guys have helped me out from the start, and I'm happy to be on anytime you guys need me. But as for me, so I've been doing a lot of work for the Field of 68. I usually go on their podcast once or twice a week to talk bracketology. And I just started doing work for Seth Davis with a new venture that he has called Hoops HQ. So I am Hoops HQ's bracketologist, and I just started posting my brackets up. Today is actually the first day. It is subscription based, but it's an awesome site and something that many people should check out. But yeah, I'm busy, and I wouldn't want it any other way.
Now, Brad, how often are you going to be updating stuff on Hoops HQ, your brackets?
So it's going to be twice a week now, and as we get closer to Selection Sunday, it's going to be every other day, and then eventually it's going to be every day, once we get into the final week or two, just like I normally do.
So, Brad, let's talk what we can talk about bracketology-wise in the Garden State, and of course we'll be following along the national scene. For your updates, what do you think of the way – let's talk about Rutgers, first of all, and I have a block of questions here. I know you follow the Scarlet Knights really closely. Let's start off with the way Rutgers scheduled this season. The three-game Players Era Festival in Vegas, which they're in again next year, playing Princeton at the Rock, at Kennesaw State, Michigan State at Madison Square Garden, and just one bye game against a plus 300 net team, which is Wagner, okay? So how much of this would you keep? What would you discard moving forward? Obviously, they won't be back at Kennesaw, but what do you think of the way Rutgers changed their schedule this season from a metrics bracketology standpoint?
I think it was the best Steve Pikiell has ever scheduled. Much improved schedule. The unfortunate part is that they were unable to, gain any quality wins. They had plenty of opportunities. So, you put together the schedule. It doesn't guarantee you anything. There are a couple things I would still change. Obviously, like you mentioned, the at Kennesaw State game, that was kind of a lose-lose situation. I get it though with Ace Bailey. So you can't really knock the staff for scheduling that game. One game that I actually would prefer to switch, and I don't know, you guys might be against this, but I'm not a fan of playing Princeton on a neutral court. I think Princeton should be played at Jersey Mike's at the Rack. Rutgers is a Big Ten team, and they've lost a couple games now. Like Rutgers is, maybe not this year, but in the years past, they're a different team, as we know, at Jersey Mike's. So you're giving up a substantial home court advantage, even though the crowd has been predominantly Rutgers fans in these neutral site games. It's not the same, as we know. So I would like to see them just get them at home. And if you want to do a home and home like they used to do, maybe do it 2 games at Rutgers, and then the third year is a game at Princeton. I'd be okay with that. But I think I feel like it's just unnecessary to schedule that type of game against a team like Princeton. I'd rather have that game at home. And then, just in terms of their guarantee games, their non-conference guarantee games at home, much improvement. much improvement. They stayed away from multiple teams in the net 300s, which is great. And in terms of the players, Eritor, you got great matchups. They played Notre Dame. Notre Dame was hit by, their best player got injured in the beginning of that game and missed a few weeks, which didn't help their cause. And then playing Alabama and Texas Tech, two great teams, and they just fell short. So I like how they scheduled, and I have no issues with if they continue to do it like this moving forward.
Brad, you're a former Rutgers staffer and a guy who really follows that program closely. I mean, what's your take on the season they're having and kind of how it got to this point after such incredible preseason expectations?
Yeah, of course. Every diehard, you had lofty expectations with hopes that maybe this team could even, if all goes well, maybe they could reach a Final Four. And, understandably so, when you have 2 top 3, top 5 NBA draft picks. I think ultimately what it came down to is the players that the staff surrounded those 2 stars with are just not working out, whether they don't seem to be high major players. I don't want to knock individual players, but it seems like they have a bunch of complementary guys, a bunch of role players that are nice pieces, but they don't have that third, fourth option that you could really go to consistently every single game that could really be of benefit to Ace and Dylan. So I think when it comes to recruiting for this season, you had this is a once in a lifetime opportunity. And unfortunately, they didn't surround their 2 stars with the proper players.
Brad, let's just play the hypothetical game for a minute. If Rutgers catches fire and finishes the regular season 7-2 down the stretch here, that gets them to 18-13 overall, 11-9 in the Big Ten, probably 6 quad 1 wins as it plays out, which I think matches what they had in 2022 when they snuck in. Is that enough to get them in the bubble conversation heading in the Big Ten tournament?
Yes, I think it would get them in the bubble conversation. One reason, because the bubble, we say it every year, but the bubble is so weak. When I'm going through this morning and last night into this morning, figuring out my last 4 teams in, first 4 teams out, next 4 teams out, it's really difficult because there's a lot of bad resumes out there. You take a team, for example, like Pittsburgh, who is one of my last few teams in the field. They play in a weak ACC. How many quad 1 wins do they have? They just have 1 quad 1 win.
Yeah, wow. And Rutgers is 3 right now.
Right, and the part about Rutgers' schedule that I've said, week after week, they still have so many opportunities, but you're running out of time. They still get to play at Oregon. They're at Maryland, at Michigan, at Purdue. Are they going to win these games? I mean, it's going to be really difficult, especially if Harper doesn't come back or if he doesn't come back 100%. But you can't just say the season is over because the opportunities remain on their schedule.
As you look at a team like Princeton, it look like it's still trying to find themselves a little bit. What do you see as their seed potential?
Yeah, so right now, Yale is of course leading the conference, and I have Yale as a 13 seed. They're in a little bit better shape than Princeton. Right now, Princeton is on that border of a 13-14 seed. I think the ceiling is a 13 seed. A 14 is probably more likely, but again, when it comes down to it, we'll need to see who the other automatic bids are from different conferences if Princeton ends up winning the Ivy League, because that's going to determine their seed. But I would say the ceiling is 13. The 14 is probably more likely though, but in that range right there.
All right, let's throw St. John's in here because, again, there's not a whole lot to talk about in Jersey, but St. John's will have local followers, right? New York team, Kadari Richmond at point guard, Rick Pitino. What is St. John's seed potential, Brad?
Yep. So right now, you look at St. John's record; they're 19-3 overall and 11-1 in the Big East. You would think they should be a top 2 or 3 seed at the moment. They're currently a projected 6 seed, and the reason why they're there right now, they only have 1 quad 1 win, and that's at Xavier, a team that's not even in the NCAA tournament at the moment. They only have 1 win against the field, and that's against New Mexico, a team that is on the bubble. So while St. John's has had a tremendous season, they are still trying to get some high quality wins, and they have the opportunities to do so. They still get to play at UConn. They still get to play at Marquette. They get Marquette and UConn at home as well, and they get Creighton at home. So they do have the opportunities to move up the seed line. And I think their potential is probably a 3 seed, which I think they can get there if they can win the majority of those games against those top tier foes in the Big East.
Brad, can you see the selection committee putting UConn and St. John's in the East region, which would put them at the Prudential Center?
Yeah, I think it's possible. I mean, again, it depends on their seeds. If St. John's ends up as a 3 seed and UConn ends up as a 4 seed, it's unlikely that they'll both be there, but it's definitely possible. Right now, I have UConn as a 7 seed. So they have a ways to go to climb up. When you're a 7 seed, you have no preference. You don't get any preference into what region you're in. And St. John's right now as a 6 also doesn't get preference. So they would both have to be top 4 protected seeds in order to be there. And I would imagine the team that's the better seed would get there. Is it possible they both can be there? Yes, it is, but I would say it's unlikely.
That would be a metropolitan area reporter's dream to have both of those programs at the Rock. We'll have to see how it plays out. I happen to think St. John's is the best team in the Big East, but we'll see. It's got to play out on the court. Like you said, big games to come. One more on the Big East, Brad. The Big East appears headed for a 4-bid season. St. John's, UConn, Marquette, Creighton. After getting just 3 bids last year, what can the league do to improve its profile? I know that they consider a 3 or 4 bid season to be really insufficient. Would expansion help? If you were the Big East commissioner, is there a program you'd have on deck to add in case UConn leaves? I'm throwing a lot of questions at you here, but what's your feeling on if you were the czar of the Big East, what would you do here?
Well, first of all, I think every team in the conference needs to be on the same page because you have certain teams in the league, not every team, but certain teams towards the bottom. I'll throw out a team like Georgetown, who has the 339th non-conference strength of schedule in the country. And there's a few other teams at the bottom of the league that did not schedule well. That being said, the majority of the league was okay in terms of scheduling. The problem is they didn't beat any teams. Right. Even the best team in the Big East, like we mentioned, St. John's, they didn't beat any upper echelon teams that are, going to be top 5, 6 seeds in the NCAA tournament, which is a problem. That's how you get multiple teams into the field is by doing work in non-conference play. So that's number one that they need to do. You got to win some games. If UConn leaves, there are some programs I have in mind. You obviously have to call Gonzaga. I think Big East has messed around with them over the years, but it hasn't happened. I think Gonzaga's a program. I think
Gonzaga would be a no. I think they'd be a no. I think, but you have to call them. Agreed.
Yeah, you got to call them.
It'd be a no.
I would want to reach out to a team because you got to try. I'd want to reach out to a team like Notre Dame again. I would want to reach out to, if we're looking at the Atlantic 10, the best teams there that would make the most sense are probably, a VCU, a Dayton. And then another team that I would throw out there that has football, but so does UConn, is Memphis. I think Memphis could be a decent fit in that league. And Memphis has been perennially, the last number of years, they've been at the top of the American Conference. And right now, they're a 4 or 5 seed in the NCAA tournament, always bringing in a wealth of talent to that program. So I think there's a number of ways you could go, but obviously you lose a team like UConn, they're kind of irreplaceable.
Right. We don't know that that's going to happen, but we're just speculating. And the Notre Dame intrigues me a lot. That's the first I've heard of Memphis's name brought up. Interesting stuff, Brad. Thanks.
Hey, Brad, this is the time of year when everyone's looking for a Cinderella. How about a mid-major sleeper that's kind of lurking out there that you think could have an impact in the big dance?
Yeah, I'll give you a couple teams. Drake out of the Missouri Valley, who always seems to be a sleeper team that's in the mix. They're actually in play for an at-large bid at the moment, but in all likelihood, not going to happen. Another team that I would say is Arkansas State. Arkansas State right now is a projected 12 seed. They won at Memphis earlier in the season, have a really, really talented team. And I think they're a team that can knock off, a 5 seed and a 4 seed potentially in the NCAA tournament if they get the right matchups.
All right. That's good stuff. Make a note of it. Brad, we hope we'll revisit with you in March, as is our tradition. He's going to teach class now, folks. What a great teacher Brad must be. Is it true you're teaching basketball today?
I am teaching basketball. I'm a phys ed teacher. We're starting our basketball unit, and I can't wait.
Oh, I love it. All right, Brad Wachtel, thanks for joining us on Jersey Jump Shot. You're the man.
All right, guys. Thanks for having me.
Well, that was pretty cool, Steve. And it's been great to see Brad's rise to the ranks. I remember him, of course, when he was working at Rutgers and I first started covering the program a couple decades ago. Him and I both had hair then. Times change, but he has gone on to do really well. Facts and Bracks is his website. Hoops HQ is now his new home and one of the very best in a very crowded field of bracketology. So good to hear from Brad. And interesting stuff, Steve. I love the food for thought there about Notre Dame. How about that? Notre Dame in the Big East.
Yeah, that would be something. I tell you, to talk about juicing up your league. But yeah, I mean, again, Brad has so much incredible information, and even in a year when there's not much to look at in New Jersey, there's always a lot going on, and he knows everything. So
good to hear from him. All right, let's go down. We do have a lot to discuss because it's just been so much bad that's happened. Let's go down the list. Let's talk about Rutgers. I want to discuss Rutgers. I was at the 3 games this weekend. I saw they were all losses for New Jersey's teams. Here's what I want to say about Rutgers: is they come off a very hard-fought loss to Michigan at home, and they're 11-11. Rutgers has improved, Steve. They've gotten better in all areas. They're better defending. They're defending better. They're rebounding better. The supporting cast is doing more. When you pull Dylan Harper out of the lineup, they're going to be at a huge disadvantage against the better Big Ten opponents. And that's just the fact. That does not absolve, of course, losses to Kennesaw, to Princeton, the no-show at Ohio State to open up the Big Ten schedule. But this is a stat. It's a real stat. In the Big Ten games where Rutgers has had Dylan Harper at or close to full speed, they're 3-1. And when he's out or clearly limited, they're 1-6. And that is the biggest story of their season, unfortunately.
Yeah, absolutely. And if they can get Dylan Harper healthy quick, that'd be great. But as you and I know, high ankle sprains, they can take a little bit of time. So we'll see how quickly he can get back there. But they need him. And you can see now, as Brad was just talking about, if you don't have that third, fourth consistent option, well, it certainly becomes really easy to just focus your defense on Ace Bailey with Dylan Harper out. And you saw that against Michigan.
Right. And the Ace Bailey experience, Steve, I mean, listen to this. Listen to these last 4 games. He shoots 13 of 15 from the field at Penn State and then gets 2 costly technical fouls for yapping after dunks. Okay. Then he plays against Michigan State and can't throw the ball in the ocean at the Garden. Then he absolutely lights up Northwestern for 37 points on the road. Then he can't throw the ball in the ocean against Michigan. So, this is the Ace Bailey roller coaster. He's the reason they won at Northwestern, which was a great win. He's the biggest reason they lost to Michigan at home.
Yeah, and as talented as he is, he's a freshman, right?
Yeah.
And you see this from these guys, and it's part of the learning curve, and you're gonna have to live with it.
And he's got that much harder of a job with Dylan Harper out, like you saw. Now, not everyone has Dusty May's personnel, right? But Dusty May doubling Ace, face guarding him way away from the basket with 2 big guys, long defenders, really took Ace out of his rhythm. So good job by Dusty May. And I want to say something about Dylan Harper. You mentioned, you hope that he gets back in his high ankle sprain. First of all, there's a lot of conspiracy theories and nonsense floating around about Dylan Harper. And this is the world we live in now. But he really is hurt, okay? And he really is trying to get back. Grade 1, we don't know the grade, but most grade ankle sprains, high ankle sprains without surgery, it could take up to 6 weeks. He gets hurt. Now, we don't know exactly when he incurred the high ankle sprain. Here's what we know for sure. He sprained his ankle against Penn State. He comes back in the game, continues to play. He's not the same player. He's obviously hurting. He tries to gut it out. That's on Monday the 20th. Rutgers is off to Tuesday. He doesn't practice Wednesday and Thursday. He goes through a full practice Friday without a limp or any sign of an injury. I saw it with my own eyes. Jay Wright was there. He saw it. He said something about it on the broadcast against Michigan State. something happened between that practice and then the Michigan State game, whether he woke up sore Saturday morning or tweaked himself during shoot-around. He's clearly not right during the pregame warm-ups in the Garden. They scratch him. They literally take his name out of the book as a starter 5 minutes before tip when he says he's in pain. He then tries to come back in and play, and then he's, ineffective. He's clearly hurting, and he gets shut down. So, we don't know when he hurt himself exactly. This high ankle sprain was incurred. We know the original ankle sprain was against Penn State. He probably should have rested, not played in the Michigan State game, especially once he was clearly hurt during warmups. But he really is trying to get back. Enough with this "we didn't walk on the moon" stuff, folks. He's trying to get – the guy tried to play through an ankle injury in multiple games. He wants to play. He loves Rutgers. He's a Jersey guy. He wants to win. His family cares deeply about this college experience. So he's trying to get back. He has not packed it in, but maybe he doesn't come back because the high ankle sprain doesn't heal in time. We just don't know. We don't think we'll see him for a few more weeks. And that's just a bad luck on top of a rough season for Rutgers basketball. In the meantime, there are opportunities here for Jermichael Davis and Jordan Durkak, a couple of underclassmen guards who have shown some signs that they could be real contributors to this program going forward. This is, you hate to talk about next year when Rutgers still, as Brad said, has a pulse, but these are two guys who maybe could contribute to this program in the post-Dillon, post-Ace era. Listen to Jermichael Davis's last 5 games, Steve. He had 15 assists compared to 1 turnover in the last 5 games, and he started to hit some shots. Jordan Durkak scores 26 points against Michigan State in the Garden. These are guys who can help you, and they're going to get some run now because we don't think Dillon will be back for a few games at least.
Yeah, and I people like Tyson Acuff. You're getting to look at guys now, and you're seeing them develop. And I think that's going to be one of the most important things now over the next month is, going through everybody, seeing who can really fit with this program now. So I think that's part of the process. Yeah.
So when will we see Dylan Harper again? I don't know. Will we see him again in Rutgers uniform? I don't know, but we do know he's trying to get back, and he hasn't thrown in the towel on the season on the first week of February. So we'll have to just see how it plays out, and that's been really the story of a Rutgers season filled with bad breaks and disappointment. All right, Seton Hall. It's a question I've been getting asked all season in one form or another, Steve, by Seton Hall fans and alums. Is Seton Hall becoming the new DePaul? And that question is exacerbated when Seton Hall gets run off the court by 17 points at DePaul on Sunday to lose their 7th straight game and take sole possession of last place in the Big East at 1-10. Pirate fans are not used to losing like this, Steve. 10 straight seasons, the Hall has finished 500 or better in conference. 10 straight. They're one of only 9 high majors in the country with that kind of streak. I'm going to read you the other teams with that kind of streak. Kansas, Duke, Virginia, Oregon, Villanova, Creighton, Houston, and Florida. That's the company Seton Hall's in with 9 straight 500 or better seasons in records in conference. And so Seton Hall fans are not used to this, but that said, Pirate fans, I feel like they've come to accept, that this is a lost season, obviously, and they've mostly, I think, smart fans have turned their attention to individual player development, and they want to see some effort and the team hang in there during these games that they have left. If there's one thing fans cannot accept, Steve, and they won't accept, it's being run off the court by DePaul.
Yeah.
That's it. You follow college basketball.
Yeah. And listen, unfortunately, injuries are mounting for the Pirates, making it tough. But, listen, you're trying to develop players and you got guys that have potential. But now you're not only trying to develop them, you're asking them to make big plays and win games for you. And that's tough to do. And you see their ups and downs, in the spotlight now. And, so it's a tough situation.
Well, we have to mention the injuries, of course. And that's what I was going to get into next. The Hall goes into this game in DePaul with one hand tied behind their back. Dylan Adaiwusu's out again. Before it was a foot, now it's an ankle. The guy's tough. He must be hurt if he can't play. Chauncey Jenkins, he's on his way back from a knee injury. We think he'll be back soon. He wasn't quite ready yet. He did make the trip. But, there's a guy who's scoring 12 points a game. Dylan Adaiwusu is the most experienced guard and the best defender. They don't play. As soon as I saw that before the game, I'm like, Seton Hall's not winning this game. Now, did I think they'd lose by 17? No, but I knew they weren't winning the game without those guys. Then Scotty Middleton gets hurt. He's in the starting lineup. A guy with some promise. He gets hurt. He hurts his ankle. He did return to the bench later in the game, which is a good sign that the ankle sprain wasn't so bad that they kept him in the locker room or sent him to the hospital. But he hurts his ankle, and then doesn't play the rest of the game. So now you're down 3 players, and Seton Hall's roster is just not good enough to beat any Big East team when you're down 3 key players. So like Rutgers, the injuries are not why Seton Hall's having a bad season, but it's a big part of why they, got run off the court by DePaul. But still, that said, DePaul is a kind of a dirty word still. I mean, they have improved from pathetic to just plain bad. And I'm sure that's like Christmas morning for all 5 of their fans, but it's still kind of a stain on your honor to lose to DePaul in any fashion, especially like this. So it brings us back to the question, is Seton Hall the new DePaul? Could they be the new DePaul that fans are so worried about, given the financial situation, the shifts in the sport? Here's what I would say about that right now. DePaul's been awful for 21 years, Steve. 21 years. The George W. Bush presidency, okay? Pre-social media. If Seton Hall is like this for 21 years, I'll be 72 when they snap out of it. You'll be like 49.
Yes.
So to be that bad for 21 years is not happenstance. It's a choice. It's a choice to not care or to allow incompetence to take over. Now, the rules of the game have changed, right? And Seton Hall still has a choice. And there's evidence that you can turn things around quickly in the free agency era. I'm going to rattle off some teams who've had big turnarounds this season, high major teams. Louisville, Michigan, Missouri, West Virginia, Vanderbilt, Stanford, Georgetown. You can turn things around pretty quickly. Now, I know the Big Ten and the SEC are swimming in cash, so maybe that's apples and oranges. But like I mentioned some ACC teams in there. There's a Big 12 team in there. There's a Big East team in that list I mentioned. So that's the pool you're playing in. So if you're going to play in that pool, if you're going to swim in that pool, then you have a chance to turn it around. If not, then don't swim in that pool.
Well, and the thing, Jerry, is when they jump in the pool this offseason, think about this. I mean, think about the pressure to hit home runs this offseason. I
Right.
mean, you got to nail it this time after this season.
Seton Hall raised $20+ million for a practice facility, in addition to whatever bonds they floated and whatnot. Can you get favorite son Shaheen Holloway $3 million? So I have to stop answering questions about the new DePaul. That's the charge for Seton Hall, the folks surrounding Seton Hall this offseason. And look, the last few weeks here, are there guards and wings in particular who can help Seton Hall next year? We know Isaiah Coleman can. That's what Shaheen Holloway has to discern, and those players have to want to stay at a reasonable, price to speak frankly. And then Seton Hall, they don't have to hit 5 home runs in the portal. They have to retain a couple key guys. You want some continuity, however bad they've been this year, because continuity is how you build, right? That's how a coach who develops players can build. So you need you don't want to start over with 13 new guys. That's running on a treadmill. You need some continuity, and then you're going to need to bring in like 3, high impact type of players through the portal. Okay. Experienced, high impact players. And that's going to cost you, but also you got to make the right decisions. And so that's kind of where Seton Hall is. It's doable. If you have a coach who Seton Hall believes Shaheen Holloway's the coach, there's evidence that he could be that coach. You have to now give him the working capital, and they have to make the right decision. So no, my answer is no. I don't think Seton Hall is the new DePaul, but even despite everything that they're up against, no one's saying they're going to go back to a Final Four next year, but can they be better, competitive, solid? Yes, I believe that's doable if they do the right things this offseason. Okay. So that's my spiel on Seton Hall, Steve. And I know you've been following them too, and we'll see how it plays out. I want to go on to Princeton. I went to Jadwin Friday. I was all hyped for the 5 o'clock ESPN2 tip. They moved the tip up 2 hours. And to be on ESPN2, of course, if you're Princeton, you take that in a heartbeat, right, Steve? Big game against Yale, first place in the Ivy League on the line. Jadwin Jim is a buzz. And then Princeton falls 20 points down. Mitch Henderson pulls all 5 of his starters, including the stars of his team, the heart of his team, Xavier Lee and Cade Pierce. He makes them watch from the bench for the last 8 minutes as the second team, including 4 freshmen, play their rear ends off, cut a 20-point deficit to 5. Steve, what a coaching, teachable moment at the end of that game.
Brilliant. It really is. And I think you saw the intensity of those kids coming off the bench and how much they wanted it. And to have your key guys sit there and watch that's brilliant.
So the Ivy League they play back-to-back, right? Friday night and Saturday night. 24 hours later, Mitch Henderson comes out against Brown, and which is not a horrible team, right? Middling Ivy League team. Comes out against Brown, makes 2 starting lineup changes, so continues to send a message, right? Benches those guys for 8 minutes on a nationally televised game, then makes 2. He did start Lee and Pierce, but he makes 2 starting lineup changes, and then Princeton beats the crap out of Brown, wins by 20, and that's the Princeton team that can make a run, in the Ivy League and make a run at winning the NCAA tournament. And I just thought it was a nice coaching masterclass. Ultimately, we'll revisit this down the road to see how it plays out. But I feel like this might have been the weekend, Steve, where the light went on for Princeton, especially the 2 star players who I believe that no matter what Mitch Henderson says, message, no message, I believe that was his moves were intended to wake those guys up before it's too late.
Well, think about it. I mean, you're sitting down arguably the 2 best players in your league, and I think it's going to pay big dividends because, as you see, it is going to be a great race in the Ivy League and a great Ivy League tournament this year.
Princeton has too much talent to be falling down 20 points at home to anybody, Yale, Columbia, whoever. They have too much talent to be down 20 in these games. Do I think Yale is better than Princeton? Yes, right now I think they are. It's a tough matchup. Yale is big and very good inside, where Princeton is kind of lacking. Okay, they really miss Zach Martini. They don't have somebody to man the middle there. They do have a promising freshman, Malik Abdullahi, who saw some time at the end of that game, who maybe can help them by the end of the year. But do I think Yale is the favorite to win the Ivy League? Sure. Does that mean Yale wins the Ivy League? No, because now there's a tournament, and Princeton has not materially benefited from the Ivy League tournament since its inception, right? Every time Princeton has gone to the NCAA tournament, they have won the Ivy League or shared the Ivy League title. And they have been picked off as the regular season champ, but they haven't come from not winning the regular season to winning the Ivy League tournament. Maybe this is the year that happens. Maybe they need a little help with someone at the opposite end of the bracket picking Yale off. We'll see how it transpires in Providence in March. But if they're too good to be playing like this, and if Princeton's going to maximize their potential, they could win the league for sure. This was maybe a step in that direction, Steve. And I wish more coaches would send messages like this. I really do. I mean, it takes some guts to bench stars like that, but it was a nice piece of coaching, and I give Mitch Henderson a ton of credit. Let's talk about Monmouth. There's a New Jersey team that had a good week, right? No winter of discontent in West Long Branch over the past 6 days. Steve, tell us about their 2 wins, the tremendous guard play, Madison Durr's 33 free throws in a row. Tell us about it and what's going on for the Hawks.
Well, I think Monmouth's a dangerous team right now. You saw a team that really got clobbered by a lot of high majors early in the year. And I think as you get into CAA play now, you're seeing they're a pretty tough team, and they're going to be tough down the stretch because they have 2 really good scorers. We knew about Abdi Bashir Jr. And now Madison Durr, their junior point guard, a transfer from Citadel, has really taken it upon himself the last few games. The 2 combined for 124 points in 2 games. They combined for 72 points in a double overtime takedown of Drexel. Madison Durr had 40. Abdi Bashir, who's the leading scorer in the league and number 3 in the nation, had 32 in that game. So Monmouth is really scoring right now. And then they came back and topped 90 against Delaware on Saturday. So I think what you're seeing is a Monmouth team that's dangerous right now and is exciting.
Could you see this team, now that you have two guards, not one, two explosive guards, which makes a huge difference, could you see this team making a run in the CAA?
I think it's going to depend on if they can get a decent seed. Last year they went 10-8 in the league, but all that got them was the 8-9 game, right? And they won that, but then you got to come back less than 24 hours later against the best team in the league, which last year was Charleston, and they couldn't survive that. So I think if you can get a better seed, I think Monmouth has a chance to maybe get rolling in the tournament. So we'll see. They got a huge game Saturday with first place Towson at home. Towson has won 8 straight. Monmouth's won 18 of their last 19 games at home. So that's a big moment for them. They could really leap up right back in the race then.
Let's talk about the atmosphere at Monmouth's home court, which is a beautiful place, perfectly sized for their level. What was it like there and Saturday? And what about this beer garden? This beer garden has become quite the event at Monmouth. Give me some atmosphere vibe details, Steve, for what it was like there.
Well, let me tell you, I walked in about an hour before the game and walking around the concourse at one end zone, which is where the beer garden is. And there were already people in there an hour before the game. So, yeah.
What time of day was this?
This was Saturday.
What time, though?
Game was 2, so that had to be 1 o'clock.
Oh, the 1 o'clock day drinking at the beer garden.
Yeah, so
I'm getting thirsty.
It's a popular thing, I will say. And they had the biggest crowd of the season, very loud. These were Monmouth's Thursday and Saturday were Monmouth's first 2 games of the season, if you can believe that, with students on campus.
My
right?
goodness, that's wild.
Yeah, and the student section was packed both days. So that was nice to see, and that was really a good boost to the atmosphere as well.
How often do they do this beer garden?
See, they can only do it probably 3 or 4 times a year because it's some kind of a separate license with the town. And I keep saying to them, that should be an easy fix, right? You should have that every game.
Beer garden every game. Come on, come on. Who do we got to call? When's the next one, Steve? I want to request my press pass. When is the next beer garden?
I'm not sure, but I'm going to find out. It's a good thing, yes.
But I want to just add to that by saying, like, if you're a Monmouth basketball fan or a student, why wouldn't you come to these games? I mean, you're watching these two guys absolutely light it up. Look, even when Monmouth loses, it's wild and exciting, right? They don't hardly ever lose at home. So you have two exceptionally talented guards who are red hot. And why wouldn't you want to come see this? So I'm glad to see Monmouth finally playing at home, getting some juice at home, and beer garden, the beer's flowing, the shots are falling. And Steve, did I read this right? Madison Durr has made 33 straight free throws. 33
straight. Yeah, he made 19 of 19 against Drexel, including 7 of 7 in the second overtime, and was 14 of 14 against Delaware. Yeah, so 33 in a row. That's his thing, right? He's a 6'5", strong point guard. Getting downhill is what he does. He takes his guy to the basket and he gets fouled or he makes it. And that's what he's been doing, and that's why he's been going to the line a lot. He drew 11 fouls against Drexel.
It's one thing to draw the fouls, and 11 is a ton. I mean, that is a ton of fouls drawn. But to make 30, I don't know that I remember a guy hitting 33 free throws in a row. Our buddy Shavar Reynolds had a nice streak. He was in that neighborhood for a while at Seton Hall, another Jersey Shore guy. But 33 in a row is something else. So good for him. He's shooting 80% from the line on the year, and that number is going to be going up and up. So good job by Monmouth. I want to throw out one more thing. Congratulations to Rider coach Kevin Baggett for winning his 200th collegiate game. He's lasted a long time in the MAC. It's hard to do in a league with a ton of transition one way or another. You know, Rider is really low on the resources. It's been widely written about the university's financial situation. Who knows what the future holds there, you know, with as far as how much they can invest, how long the university is going to remain around. I mean, I think these are all fair questions considering like the state of their rating, their credit rating. But congratulations to him. And, you know, Ryder's won a few games now. I don't know that we'll have a team that's a factor in the MAC this year, but it is an accomplishment getting to 200 wins. And that's what we got, Steve. So thanks to Brad Wachtel for coming on. Always much appreciated. With him, will be back with us hopefully in March. And, we appreciate you guys, the listeners, readers, viewers, for staying with us through the winter of discontent. You never know in college basketball what's going to happen. And that's why we'll stay with you on the Jersey Jump Shot.